It's Friday. It's 5 o'clock. It's time for the BWI Daily Edition. And back, it only took us 3 weeks of the college football season to get everything sorted out, but we have, once again, Ryan Snyder's best bets coming up on the show and recruiting information from our insider. Stay tuned on the BWI Daily Edition. There he is, Ryan Snyder, recruiting insider here on the show. We're going to be talking about his primary job, which is to be our recruiting intel reporter, getting us information from recruits, interviews, and then, of course, predictions, all that stuff. But his side job, a growing sharp in the business of sports betting. We'll be getting to Ryan Snyder's best bets on the show today. Ryan, I am so hyped for the weekend that if our streaming platform could handle it, I'd just be playing hype music in the background the whole show. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing well. I'm not that hyped for the weekend. I mean, I got to work all weekend, but I'm going to go see Javen Williams tonight. So heading up to Reading here in a little bit to go watch him play Berks Catholic. Excited to see that. Obviously, tomorrow it looks like a fun day of college football. Not like the greatest slate, but there are some. I think it's like an underrated slate, I guess you would say, of some fun games. Obviously, Penn State, Auburn. We'll get into all that. And yeah, man, just looking forward to seeing Javen, and then also looking forward to potentially getting back up to Penn State next weekend. I haven't been to a game yet. We're trying to figure out my schedule. I know I'm going to go see Quentin Martin next Friday. So I don't know. It depends on if I sleep over in Pittsburgh and then go to State College. I'm trying to figure that stuff out still. But lots to talk about recruiting wise, and lots to talk about with a massive game this weekend. So let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, Javen Williams, friend of the show. And I believe last time I saw him, he said, hey, so I think he watches the show. So, hey,
say,
Javen,
hey,
T? Yeah, he did.
Like James, hey, T, hey, T. Yeah. I always laugh at that every time you ask a question. Hey, T. Anyway, let's go.
So let's get into it. You talked to a couple of recruits this week, and we're going to start with Dakaari Nelson because there's some information there, and I think Penn State fans want to hear from you how they should feel about that information. So I'm setting you up with very little here, but tell us what's going on.
Yeah. So I'll let me give credit where credit's due. Sean did most of the legwork on this one, but we, we're always chipping away at things together nowadays. But Sean did do most of the legwork on this one. I think so. It came out a couple of days ago that Dakaari Nelson was going to be at the Penn State Auburn game this weekend, and that perked everybody up, right? Because he was obviously at the Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss had a barbecue or something like that in July, and that grabbed people's attention. And of course, Tamari and Parker decommitting, and Dakaari and Tamari being friends. It just kind of. He's been a guy we've been watching, right, for a little while. So just digging a little bit on that more. It sounds like Penn State feels pretty good about that situation. It doesn't sound like they need to be, or fans need to be too worried about Dakaari. Yes, he is going to Auburn tomorrow. I don't think he'd be going to Auburn if they're playing any other team, put it that way. I'll also note that James Franklin is expected to see Dakaari Nelson play tonight. One of the assistants will be with him. I don't remember which one offhand. I apologize. But I do expect James Franklin to be watching his game tonight. And like I said, just digging a little bit more on that situation. Penn State seems to feel pretty good. And I know when he went to Ole Miss, there just was some, not concerns, but just kind of wondering, how much is he going to look around? And then also, if you go back even further to before he committed to Penn State, Dakaari was constantly saying he wanted to take visits during the season. So yes, he is doing that. But I think it'll intrigue me a lot more if he goes and visits other schools after Auburn. Because right. Like I said, I think he's going to Auburn mainly to watch Penn State, or at least that's the impression that most of the people we speak with are under. So still think to feel good on that one. Don't get too worked up about Dakaari, but if he pops up on another campus later, then we can all freak out.
Well, we do our best, but I think people are going to freak out either way. So interesting to note, of course, another player down south that Penn State has to keep wrangled during the college football season. There's a couple of them. Elliot Washington was on TV the other night, so you can check that out and see how he played against St. Francis, right? He was playing St. Francis.
Yep. I tried watching it. My kids did not cooperate. I wish we could talk about it, but I was laying in bed reading stories and doing the things you do with 2-year-olds, so I didn't get to watch.
How dare you be a father? You don't have a personality outside this camera. Don't. I tried
to give him melatonin and everything, guys. It was not working. So,
apparently, they're as hyped as I am for the weekend.
Yeah, I'll catch up on it then. It's like, fortunately, that's the nice thing about those ESPN games is they're on, on ESPN Plus, and you can go back and rewatch them. But
Yeah.
yeah, didn't get to watch that as much as I would have liked last night.
But a couple of other guys as well, 2025 players that you were able to catch up with. Both
Mhm.
of these guys were at the Ohio game, correct? And these are
Yeah.
both pretty high targets for the Nittany Lions in the future.
Yeah. Anthony Sacca. I mean, we've talked about Anthony a couple times on this podcast. We have him at 6'2.5", 215 linebacker out of St. Joseph's Prep. Right now, Anthony's playing safety. And I think if you ask Anthony, he likes safety. The question here, of course, is just how much is he going to grow? And that's why On3 has him listed as a linebacker. I mean, again, already 6'2", 215. That's pretty much where Penn State likes their linebackers at. So I do think that long term, that's going to probably be where the discussion's at. But Sacca came back for the Ohio game this past weekend. We had a quick chat earlier this week about it. And one thing I learned is, well, actually, I knew this kind of going into it. This was actually Sacca's first game, a regular season game at Penn State since he was really young. I mean, he said he's been to a blue-white game in the last couple of years. But aside from that, he hasn't been coming up here, of course. And, of course, Tony Sacca, Penn State, former Penn State quarterback, is his father. So you would think that he'd be up here a little bit more than he has, but he really hasn't. So he had good things to say about that experience. Said something everybody needs to see at least once. Good things like that, and caught up with Gabe Infante, who is previously St. Joseph Prep's head coach. He's now an analyst at Penn State. But just good things to say overall. One thing I'll also add with Sacca is that he confirmed that his hotel is booked for the whiteout game, guys. So he will definitely be back here, and you can tell he comes from a Penn State family. They knew to book that hotel well in advance.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, they know the deal up here. Unlike all those other 100 kids who are going to end up sleeping in Du Bois. A couple
Get that Clearfield one where you're right off the exit and it's only a 40-minute trip.
Embassy Suite in there. Anyway, McDonough, defensive end, Jeff Exinor is another one I think fans need to know about. He was up this past weekend. We have him at 6'1", 205. Jeff doesn't have the deep offer sheet that Sacca has right now, but he's going to be a serious player. Maryland, Virginia Tech, Boston College, Tennessee, USC is another one to early offer him. And the thing with Exeter that I think fans need to know is that there's a strong family tie to Kenny Sanders here, which certainly should help Penn State. I mean, if you read my interview with him the other day, I mean, he flat out kind of admitted, like, yeah, this is going to have somewhat of an impact on him. Now, they're not related directly or anything like that, but Exeter, I think Exeter's uncle was like maybe Kenny Sanders' best friend growing up or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I know there's strong ties there with Exeter and Sanders, and of course Sanders is arguably one of Penn State's ace recruiters. So just keep that in mind moving forward. Again, 2025 player. But he is from McDonough. McDonough has sent the vast majority of its top prospects to Penn State over the years. And so far, Penn State hasn't offered anyone in the 2024 class from McDonough. And just from looking at things, it seems like Exeter is going to be the next top McDonough guy to have Penn State's interest. So get to know him. Great kid, by the way. I mean, I've been talking to Jeff for a little while now. Of course, I went to see McDonough last year when Denai was down there. It's when I really got to know him. Just great personality, good kid, and I think you're going to see his recruitment really take off in the months ahead.
Well, checks all the boxes from what I've interacted with the McDonough, at least the defensive players that I've talked to here on the show. Like high character, good kid, great personality, works hard. They seem to all check those boxes. Speaking of checking some boxes, Penn State needs a receiver. They need some help in the class of 2023. The search continues, and there's a couple of news and notes here that we want to get to. So what's going on at receiver? What is the movement this week at that position?
Yeah, new wide receiver offer. One that I haven't heard a lot about. We've been digging a little bit, and this was a player that I hadn't really been paying attention to going into. Tayshawn Lyons, 4-star prospect out of Hayward, California. On3 has him ranked number 191 in the country. The On3 consensus has him at number 355. So our scouts, Charles Power and those guys, they clearly think higher of Lions than what the industry average is right now. Lions is going on an official visit to Notre Dame this weekend, though, and I do think the Irish seem to be the favorite. But of course, not all's well in South Bend right now. So I'll be curious to see if recruiting momentum that they have kind of slows down a bit. But I will note that Lions, or at least majority of my coworkers, have been expecting Lions to end up at Notre Dame, and this weekend is his official visit. So we'll see how things play out there. But Penn State extended an offer to him. I believe it was Wednesday. I believe it was.
Can I just tell you what my week is like? Because we talked about this last year when we go over some of the stuff and we talk about other teams and other conferences. We're pretty dialed into Penn State. We're dialed into what's going on game day. You don't really get to watch the full buffet of football. Mm-hmm. I didn't know Notre Dame lost to Marshall until yesterday.
Charles Huff, really? Really? Jeez.
You're hosting
a college football podcast? Jeez.
Because I was so deep in the Auburn film for 4 days.
Yeah.
No, I was dissecting their run game for like 3 days and arguing with people about listen, it's not a magic formula that you put on a jersey that looks like, the Auburn jersey and magically you're better at run blocking, which by the way, I did say on the Wednesday show that I was going to write an article and I was going to, show my work on that show. So if you haven't checked it out yet, that came up this morning, Friday on the BWI main page. So bluewhiteillustrated.com, sign up for $1. You get access to my film study and to his recruiting intel. So that's all up there. I'm up to speed on Marshall. Anything else I missed this weekend? And more importantly, maybe get us back to the recruiting information at the receiver position.
Well, App State beat Texas A&M if you want to get into that stuff. And by the way, if you're spending 3 days, did you not know that? Did you not know App State?
No, I knew that one. Yeah.
Okay. If you're spending 3 days watching Auburn run game, buddy, you got some problems. I got to be honest with you. But anyway, let's talk recruiting for a second. So, the big thing is, yes, Penn State is absolutely trying to get another wide receiver in. I think there's 4 guys. If you're including Tayshawn Lyons in this, I think there's really 4 guys that make the most sense right now. The newest name to kind of emerge this past week was Carmelo English. And I shouldn't say he's emerging this past week. We've been watching him for a little while, but he had been committed to Auburn, which is funny because Penn State's playing Auburn this weekend. 5'11", 182, 4-star prospect out of Phoenix City, Alabama, which, if that sounds familiar, Central is the high school. That's where Tamarian Parker played. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out there. But Penn State is poking around here. I mean, they love to get English on campus. I believe English is still going to the Auburn game this weekend. I got to triple check on that, but I believe he's still expected to go to that game this weekend. We'll see. I'm just, with the whole Tamarian Parker thing and him being his teammate, I'm curious to see where that goes. Penn State seems to have a relationship there. They're saying there's interest and things like that, but just whenever a player decommits from there, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. If that makes sense. And then the other 2 are Cam Selden and Edwin Joseph, and we've been talking about these guys, I think, for a while now. Cam is still very much committed to Tennessee. But there is certainly continued talks going on there with Penn State. And that not much has really changed, I think, over the last month. I mean, we've been, I think I mentioned, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago that Cam is reaching out to Penn State, basically, which is good to hear. It's not just Penn State reaching out to him. It's vice versa as well. So that's always an intriguing sign. I've had a lot of people asking, well, has anything changed? Any updates? All signs point to those 2 weekends in October, the Minnesota Whiteout game, of course, and then Ohio State the following weekend. That's when we're going to really learn, who's the guys coming out of the bushes, right? That have been talking to Penn State, but, it's kind of on the low. How interested are they? If they pop up at those games, which I think some will, I don't know who exactly, but some guys are going to pop up. That'll be when we learn that stuff. So we're still probably a couple weeks away from getting those visitor lists and getting in touch with guys. But for the most part, there seems to still be positive talks there with Cam Selden. And then the other one, Edwin Joseph, I'm keeping an eye on him for a visit here in the near future. I wrote about him this week. Our fans who subscribe should know what I'm talking about there. He does have an offer from Miami, and this is a new one. Of course, I should say he's from Miami, Hollywood, Florida, plays with Shamadad Madonna, 3-star prospect. That's a tongue twister. Shamadad Madonna.
I love that.
Don't cut that clip. Don't cut. Someone's going to cut that clip. Anyway, 6 foot 171. So the Miami offers for defense, which is intriguing to me because I always kind of was under the impression he was a little more interested in being a wide receiver. So let's see how that plays out. But I mean, all of my coworkers seem to think it's just a matter of time till he ends up in Miami. We'll see. I think Penn State's going to get him on campus here soon. Later, stuff is in the works there. So let's just kind of see how it all shakes out. But keep an eye on Edwin Joseph. Keep an eye on Carmelo English. Keep an eye on Cam Selden. Obviously, I still think Cam Seldon is the guy there. I mean, Cam was a very important defensive prospect for them. Then Cam decided he certainly wants to play offense and commits to Tennessee. And, he's still firmly committed to Tennessee. But I just wouldn't be shocked at all if he ends up at that whiteout game in about a month from now.
So if you want the good stuff and you want all of the stuff, check out BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Sign up for just $1. The link is in the description of the video. It's also, just Google it. You'll get there. $1, 12 months of access for all of Ryan Snyder's intel. Now, we're going to get to Ryan Snyder's best bets. And for those of you that are joining us new, and there's a lot of new subscribers and followers here on the show since last season, Ryan is a budding expert in the area of sports betting. So he's going to give you his best bets for the weekend. And for those of you who remember the show from last year, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is the greatest piece of video that I've ever put together. So if you're watching or if you're listening on the podcast version, I encourage you, first off, there's going to be 30 seconds of music here, but check out the YouTube video. It is worth it. And now that I've overhyped it, let's go.
I think this is going to be one of the best seasons Toledo's ever had. We'll do the official play will be -7.5 first half. Degenerate in me sometimes watches a little Hawaii, Stanford. I'll lay 12 with Stanford. Vanderbilt stinks. I had them last week against Notre Dame. That was a winner.
Burning money. It was really good up until the end where you're like, hey, everyone, you want to burn your money? Listen to these picks. That was pretty good. And by the way, the only thing that's Toledo won 7-6 last year, so it wasn't one of their best seasons ever. But I had higher expectations for them in the end. But yeah, good job, T. Frank.
Appreciate that. But
that was
really,
good. That was pretty good.
You are the star of this because 41-28 is your record last year. You are firmly above 500. I know in the middle of the season, you were a little disappointed in your efforts, but you rallied for an exceptional season last year.
Oh, yeah.
So
November was good. We had a great November. We were hitting 4-1, 4-1, 3-2. I think we had 1 week that was 5-0. November was good. So don't pay attention to anything this month or next month and check back in November, folks.
All right, so let's get to it. So what's coming up for week 3? Syracuse at Purdue, Georgia, South Carolina, Iowa, Nevada, Fresno State, USC, and of course our game of the week, Penn State versus Auburn. The Penn State game is always the game of the week unless they're on the bye. So we're going to get to these one by one, and let's start with Syracuse, Purdue. What are you looking here for the Boilermakers? I'm assuming this is going to be based on their ability to score points. I should stop trying to guess and just ask.
I'm going Syracuse. No, going the opposite here. So it's pretty early, but if any of you guys have watched Syracuse this year, they are arguably one of the most improved teams in football, I think. What's standing out to me right now is the play of Garrett Schrader, who, if you follow Penn State recruiting, Garrett has long been, was one of Joe Moorhead's top targets back in the day. So I have familiarity with Garrett. I've been following him. He went to Mississippi State. I've been following him for a long time. And I'm personally just kind of happy to see the way he's been playing here in recent weeks. He's got 5 touchdown passes, completed about 80% of his passes, no interceptions. Yes, one of those games was against UConn. The other was against Louisville. They're not, UConn's nothing great or anything like that, but he's playing well. The other thing you got to know is Sean Tucker, one of the best running backs in the country. Sean Tucker will be an NFL draft pick, I believe. I don't know if he's going to be. I think it'll be 2023. I think he can come out this year. He was a Doak Walker semifinalist, had 9 games over 100 yards last year. Really good player. Look, this is a. I'm seeing. Let me the best way to put this. There's different styles in this one, right? Purdue is all passing. Mm-hmm. Syracuse has been more of a run team over the years. So we're looking at competing styles, clashing styles in this. And I will go with the running team every time because they're the ones who usually control the clock a little bit better. They're at home as well. I think Louisville was talking this past week about how loud it was in the Dome. I know. Yeah, Syracuse home atmosphere is not something we think about a lot, but I think there's real momentum with Syracuse right now. I really do. This is a make or break year for Dino Babers. They've been playing well. So yeah, I'm not going to try and keep selling this one more. I like Syracuse. This is pretty much a pick 'em, right? Syracuse or Purdue. And I like Syracuse in this one. So I think for Penn State's sake, Penn State fans want Purdue to do well, obviously, but I think the Orange are going to get this win and move to 3-0 tomorrow.
Anything else in this game that you like? Any other action you want to take or that you have your eye on that's not a part of the official?
No, because I mean the over/under again, it's competing styles, right? It's I mean if Purdue is able to whoop up on this defense, then the over is realistic. But I think it's going to be pretty even. I mean Purdue's going to get their points. I'm not saying they're not going to get their points, but I think Sean Tucker's great. I think Garrett Schrader looks like the best quarterback that Syracuse has had in quite some time. And I mean just from watching those first two games, I really watched them against Louisville. I mean they kicked Louisville's butt, we'll say, in that game. And I just right now it's only week 3, but I think Syracuse has a real chance to go into a bowl game this year.
So let's check out our second game. Throw this back up here. Georgia, South Carolina. What do you see here?
Well, what do you think I'm picking in this one? Is anyone really going to take South Carolina in this game? I mean, no chance. No. So look, South Carolina is ranked 121 right now in havoc rate, which is basically havoc allowed, which means they're allowing a ton of tackles for loss. They're allowing a ton of sacks, a ton of interceptions, all that good stuff. And now they're playing Georgia. Like it's not going to get any easier.
Kings of havoc.
Right. And Spencer Rattler, I mean, he's been making a lot of mistakes in this one. I mean, I'm going to just keep this pretty simple. Georgia's won this game 45-16 last year or 2 years ago. They won it 40-13 last year. I think South Carolina, they kind of rallied a little bit late in the year last year, but I don't think they're anything special. We'll look at what Georgia did against the Ducks. Give me Georgia minus 24 all day, every day. I don't have a lot of points and things to note about this one, but I just see two teams that are on completely different levels. I think Georgia's going to smack a lot of teams this year, and 24 is not that much, especially considering some of the spreads you're going to see from Georgia later in the year.
So their demise is greatly exaggerated, losing all that talent. They're still the Kings of Havoc. They're still the defense that will generate a lot of offense for the offense, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they lost a lot of talent, but have you seen their recruiting classes? I mean,
they have a lot to spare.
I think Georgia's going to be the team of this decade. I know we're still talking about Alabama. I think when we look back 6, 7, 8 years from now, this is going to be Georgia's decade. And they obviously last year they got their first one, and I see many more to come. Maybe, I don't know if it'll be this year. I know Alabama struggled against Texas, but if anything, that's a wake-up call for Alabama. Like the fact that they won that game, got out of there, and now Saban has all the fuel he needs to, really get into this team. That's bad for people who don't want Alabama to win this year. But beyond that, like I said, I really believe this is going to be Georgia's decade.
So our next game, Iowa, Nevada, and Iowa, how they can't score 23 points. So tell me what you look at. What are you looking at in this game? Oh,
have you seen Nevada, buddy? Have you seen Nevada?
I just told you I didn't know. I didn't know the whole thing with Marshall, so of course I haven't seen Nevada yet.
Yeah, if you didn't watch the biggest upset of the week last week, I guess you haven't watched Nevada. So Nevada gave up 300 plus yards last week to freaking New Mexico State. New Mexico State is the absolute worst team in FBS. They gave up 55 points to Incarnate Word. What is Incarnate Word? I don't even. No, actually, I will clarify. I do know what they are, and they're actually not a bad FCS program. But they gave up 55 points to Incarnate Word the other day. I mean, Nevada is one of the worst teams. Look, if Spencer Petras can't move the ball, he'll get yanked early in this game. Nevada is all about running the ball. The only thing Nevada's been able to do this year is run the ball a little bit. They're playing Iowa. They're not going to run the ball against Iowa, guys. That's not happening. And look, I mean, I'm always about buy low, sell high. Like that's how I look at plays, right? Find a team when they're at its lowest. Find a team when everybody's ripping on them all week, which is, the situation Iowa's in right now. I think they can absolutely win this game 31-7, 31-0. Like I actually do expect Iowa and not that they got to gain momentum. They need to gain confidence. There's a lot of reasons for them to not pull their starters in the third quarter or the fourth quarter. I think Iowa's going to put a bully poor Nevada, but Nevada's really taken a step back over the last couple of years, and I think people are going to see that on Saturday. Give me Iowa minus 23.
Well, I'm falling into all of the things you're saying because I'm selling real low on Iowa, but
the whole world is. That's why we're taking them.
I'll offer you an alternate ending to this game, and that is Iowa controls the ball and goes on a 7-minute drive each quarter and wins 21-0.
What a
And
jerk.
they are
No, they're going to win 24-0. They're going to win 24-0.
Kick one field goal.
Trust me, I'm not worried about that. I feel good about that play. I feel good about my next play too. Our next play is the play of the week, without a doubt, and it's Fresno State getting 13 against USC. Guys, USC's not that good, and we're making them into be something that they aren't. So look, I don't, if any of you guys watched that Stanford game last week, I mean, Stanford ran all over USC. I mean, they drove on them the entire game. And it's Stanford we're talking about here. I mean, Stanford rushed for 221 yards last week, averaged 5 yards per carry against USC. Stanford's O-line, guys, is not good. They have not been good for a long time. Yes, maybe they're getting a little bit better, but Stanford's not a quality program. Yes, USC did end up covering that spread, but I mean, Stanford had the opportunity for a backdoor multiple times in that fourth quarter and just wasn't able to get it. I think Fresno State's a quality team. They're coming off a loss to Oregon State last week. Oregon State is a quality team this year too. They're going to definitely be in best bets later in the year. But yeah, this is going to be a shootout, guys. This is a 70, an over-under is 74. USC is going to get their points. I like Jake Haener a lot. I think Jake Haener is a quality quarterback for Fresno State. One other thing too, USC is 108th in the country right now in allowing explosive rushing plays. So Fresno State's going to get their yards on the ground. It's just not going to have to be a passing game. I actually kind of think Fresno State can upset them. I didn't play it, but I do think it's actually possible. I like Jordan Mims a lot. Fresno State has a quality running back. He's better than anybody that Stanford was pulling out there last week. This is going to be a high scoring game, probably a 40 to low 40s to high 30s kind of game. This is way too many points. I think Fresno State should be getting 8, 9. I'll gladly take 13 with the Bulldogs.
You're listening to the BWI Daily Edition. It's Ryan Snyder's Best Bets. We got one more game to get to. That is the game of the week, Penn State, Auburn. But before we get to that, make sure you like the video. Should have told you this earlier in the video because, it's important that I remind our fans and listeners because I forget stuff all the time. Like yesterday, maybe to post the audio of the show where there's some malfunctions in our distribution platform. So help me, who is endlessly scatterbrained, to defeat one thing.
The almighty algorithm.
We cannot defeat the algorithm without you. Help us defeat the almighty algorithm to make sure our videos get to as many Penn State fans as possible. Like the video, subscribe. Have you not seen that? I've been playing that for like
I thought God was talking to me for a second. I'm like, what? What was that? What was that? I have not seen that.
You're the first person who's actually reacted to it. Nate just sits there like...
I mean, I thought it was the mix between God and oh man, my joke's ruined now. I can't think of the guy who owns Facebook. But anyway, go on.
Mark Zuckerberg. Let's get to the last game of the week here after everyone likes and subscribes. And if you're listening on the podcast version, make sure you download and you subscribe there as well. We are churning out all kinds of new listeners. I appreciate everybody. So let's get you the good stuff. Let's get you the last game that you want to know about. And you're going to get a full game preview from Ryan and I. Penn State, Auburn. What do you see here? What is your best bet? And then we'll get into the preview.
All right. So we hype this game up every week, guys. I got bad news for you. I have no read on this game at all. T. Frank makes me pick this game, but I wouldn't touch this game ever if I didn't have to pick this game. At my picks, I took Penn State, mainly because I didn't want to get yelled at from you guys. I have no idea. I mean, I can absolutely see Auburn winning this in a low scoring couple, winning by a field goal. I can absolutely see Penn State winning this by 3-7. I do like the under. I mean, if anything, I probably should have picked the under in this, and maybe that'll be my official play. We'll do under 48 is what the over under is. But I would not touch this game. You're going to have a lot of chances to bet on Penn State this year. This is the game you're going to learn everything, guys. Like there are points in your team season where you learn stuff. And yeah, we kind of learned stuff at Purdue. We're going to learn stuff Saturday. We're going to learn a lot about this team. To me, that's why you don't play this game. But if you had to play it, I like the under. I have a bunch of coworkers who like the over too. So who knows? Go on, T. Frank.
So here's my general read on Auburn. I don't like their I really don't like their quarterbacks. I love their running backs. I don't really like their offensive line. I know nothing about their receivers because of said quarterbacks. Their secondary's okay, and their front seven is good. So what does that equal? That equals kind of, it's an average team. Is Penn State an average team? And I think that's what you just said, is we're going to learn something about Penn State because they need to go on the road and beat what I think is a middling Auburn team with good talent in spots. I think the defensive front for Auburn is going to be the biggest challenge for the Nittany Lions, even more so than the running game, because I just think the Penn State has the athletes. They have the speed to contain that Auburn rushing attack. Do they have the speed to get outside and break contain against Auburn? And then the next thing is, do they have enough speed at receiver to catch those balls and make something happen after the catch? They've broken some tackles and done that, but this is the thing. I'm gonna set up for this one. Auburn isn't hiding anything. So they haven't really done anything defensively. And everyone's wondering, like, oh, well, maybe they're saving everything for non-conference Penn State. They just don't do anything interesting defensively. Like, they have some good wrinkles. They'll take Hall, the linebacker or the defensive end number 29, and they'll move him about the formation. They'll go 3 down, and then he's the insert rusher wherever, right? So that is a bit of a wrinkle. That's pretty good. This year, as opposed to last year, they'll actually blitz one extra guy. And maybe I'm just desensitized now by watching Manny Diaz throw literally kitchen sinks at people and faucets and drains, that I'm just like, oh, that's cute. You brought 5. You created that situation. They don't do a whole lot of complex stuff. The most interesting thing they've done defensively in coverage, especially, and when you watch the full thing, is they're playing a little more 2 high safeties. Last year, they were very vanilla, cover 3, basic stuff. And Sean Clifford, for all of his flaws, can read stuff when you give it to him. So if they give him reads, I don't have any problem giving Penn State. My bold prediction is that they'll get a 3-touchdown win in this game. Well, who's going to score? Who's going to score for Auburn? Like, that's going to come down to Nick Singleton making big plays. But
that ain't happening.
I don't see any points for Auburn.
Okay, cut this clip next week if they win by 3 touchdowns. I do not see that happening. And you can blast it all out there. We can put it on. Actually, I'm going to stop talking now because they might do that now. I'm going to stop talking. But here's the only thing I'm going to say though, and I'll I think they know this is Penn State plays up to their competition and they play down to their competition. So whether Penn State's the better team or not, that's their issue, and that's been their issue for a long time. You know what Penn State's record is? You know what Franklin's record is in situations like this, which they're away favorite of less than 7 points. They're 4-9 against the spread, and I know we're talking more, straight up wins and losses, but they don't do well in these situations when they're on the road, expected to win, and now they're going on the road to Auburn. I mean, a lot of those are on the road at Indiana, on the road at Rutgers, on the road at Maryland, and they're still not covering spreads in those games. So that's my concern. And that's why I'm not touching this game. I don't think Penn State, I know thousands of you are going to play this game, and I get it. That's what I used to do. That's what I'm wearing a Phillies shirt. I play the Phillies blindly all the time because I'm an idiot, but,
and that's how you feel alive.
As just the journalist though covers it and looking at from, the 30,000 view, there are a lot of other opportunities to play Penn State. They don't do well in these situations. They play up to their competition, which is why they play Ohio State well. More often than not, they play down to their competition as well. And this is one of those situations where, I think if you watch that San Jose State game, you watch that. I didn't really watch Mercer, but I did watch some of San Jose State. There's a lot of things that Penn State should be licking their chops about, but I got to see it before I believe it. And
this is,
we'll find out.
So let me just say, and I know that this sounds like I'm going back on what I just said. I think it's more possible that Penn State wins by 3 touchdowns than Auburn wins by 3 touchdowns.
Oh, I agree with that. Yes.
That's not my prediction. I said my bold prediction is that Penn State can get there.
I know.
Realistically, it's going to take answering a lot of the ifs you're talking about. And I think you're correct. The biggest thing that Auburn has going for them right now, other than the front 7, is that Penn State has never really traveled to Auburn. James Franklin talked about being there when he was at Vanderbilt, but the players have never been there. I think the heat could be an actual problem. I think the heat and humidity, I know this is a great conditioned team, but I don't know that it's a team that's used to playing in that environment, and humidity is the worst. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But as far as like schematically, and this is part of the problem, is I've spent all week trying to demystify the Auburn Tigers as this big, scary, menacing SEC foe. And I'm like, they're like every other team Penn State plays. There's virtually no difference between them and the other teams in the Big Ten that play a similar style of football. The offensive line, particularly for Auburn, I think is closer to Penn State and their levels of ability than they are to even Michigan last year or some of the other better teams that Penn State has played over the years, including Arkansas in the bowl game, which maybe they didn't have the most talent, but they were a very cohesive unit. I don't see a whole lot of explosive elite level blocks from that front five. So when I hear, is Penn State going to get run on? The question I have is Penn State going to be in their gap? Because if Penn State doesn't get out of their gap and they maintain discipline and they don't make a mental mistake, as long as they rally and tackle, which is going to be the actual hard part, I don't know what Auburn does offensively. And that's where, the under, I'm with you on that for sure.
I mean, I was trying to look at the weather. It's going to be 87 tomorrow. It says during the day, humidity is 60%, but it says at night it's 77%. I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm not a weather guy. So, but I mean, hey, if the humidity's in the 77% and 87 degrees tomorrow, that's pretty miserable. So we'll see. But again, I predicted Penn State in my predictions. I guess for my official play, we'll go under 48 in this one. But I just think this is going to be a game that obviously, I mean, I'm not going to say make or break a season, but man, you get this win, you're 3-0. Buckeyes don't come to town for another month. I mean, you can really gain some momentum here. It's a massive swing game for James too. I mean, yes, that contract signed and he's not going anywhere, but he needs a big win like this. He needs a big road win like this. And we'll see if they get it. I just have seen so many times, like I said, where they play down to their competition. And I do think Penn State's a better team, but Jordan Hare is an awesome environment, and we'll see if TJ. I mean, I look at like Anthony Richardson against Utah, and I look at Anthony Richardson against Kentucky. I know those teams aren't San Jose State, but all you need is just TJ Finley to have the game of his life, and we're talking about something totally different. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but from week to week, it's college football. This is why we love college football too, man. This is why I love college football. It's so unpredictable, and it's the best sport in the world in my opinion. So looking forward to this one, and I'm really jealous for all of you who are down there this weekend.
One last thing is, and this is an interesting kind of my regular T Franks out of left field question. What's the thing you want to learn most about Penn State? Because you said you're going to learn a lot about Penn State. Linebackers?
It's going to be linebackers all year for me, all year, because we know that secondary is, and I know what that defensive line is too. I mean, the defensive line isn't, they're not terrible, but they're not elite. I know what those two are, and I feel like I know what the offense is. I don't know what that linebacker core is, and we'll learn tomorrow. I know what Curtis Jacobs is. I don't really know what Tyler Elson is yet. I think. I mean, I've seen Abdul Carter. We're not going to know what Abdul Carter is for another year or so. But, there's so many questions with those 4 or 5 guys that, we'll learn a lot. I mean, they have to – you talk about playing in your gaps and stuff. I mean, boom, those are the key guys with that tomorrow. So it's all about linebackers to me. And I think I was saying that last year, and I'm going to keep saying it again this year because they are – they're the ones with, I don't want to say a target on the back, but they're the ones that a lot of people are focusing on if this defense is going to reach its potential, which I think they can. I mean, I really like Tyler Elson a lot. I think he's a smart player. I think Curtis Jacobs is a future NFL player. Like they have it all there. It's just, experience and putting it together. So excited to see what they do.
And I think this is, so James Franklin mentioned this isn't really a Mike linebackers game talking about Purdue. Tyler Elsdon, from probably the day he was born until now, the one thing he's been exceptional at is playing the run. He was really good in high school. It was the one thing, that flashed early during the blue-white game, the last couple of years of him playing in some of those spot duties we saw, and in the bowl game of being in your gap, making offensive linemen fight to block you, and then if you can, get your arms and tackle. I don't really have a problem with him. I think if you wanted to wave the "I told you so" flag, Jonathan Sutherland against Jarquez Hunter and Tank Bigsby in space, that is where I'm looking in this game. And then when Kobe King gets in the game, is he going to be where he needs to be as a redshirt freshman playing that Mike linebacker position? Those are the two that I'm keeping my eye on. And then the defensive line, James Franklin mentioned, there's so many moving parts up front where you've got guys slanting, stunting, twisting. If one guy just overshoots his gap, that's a huge problem. And they did better last week, but this is the game that's going to test how good this defensive conceptually is and how they can execute it, because they're not going to the point of this is that they are actually going to run the football at this team, and they're not going to give up on it. So we'll see.
I think the D-line is what they were last year, but they don't have Arnold Ebiketie now.
Yep. That'll do it. That's our preview. That's our show. Thanks so much, Ryan, for coming on and giving us all of your insights, both intel and prognostication. That'll do it for the BWI Daily Edition. Our post-game show coming up tomorrow. 5-0.
I did it backwards. 5-0.
Going 5-0.
Not going 5-0. Take us out, T. Frank.
We will. We'll have the live show coming up after the conclusion of Penn State and Auburn. That's coming up immediately after that, and of course, we'll be back for our Monday live recap show. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. We'll talk to you tomorrow.